Mr. President.
I recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
And I move to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371.
The clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Mr. President, this is a quote. The path forward for Congress is clear. Reopen the government immediately under a clean, continuing resolution that allows continued debate on larger issues, end quote. Mr. President, that is from the President of the American Federation of Government Employees, a labor union, I would add, most often aligned with Democrats. But this is what AFGE's president says, and I quote, "It's time to pass a clean, continuing resolution and end this shutdown today," end quote. Mr. President, I couldn't have said it better myself. And actually, I've been saying that for about a month now. But far-left activists wanted a showdown with President Trump. And so Democrats shut down the government and have forced hardworking Americans to live in uncertainty for 4 weeks. 4 weeks and counting. And even as nutrition programs are running out of money and federal workers are lining up at food banks, Democrats continue to reject every opportunity to end the shutdown or mitigate its pain. They've now blocked a clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution 12 times. 12 times, Mr. President. A clean resolution sitting right there to open up the government, get everybody paid, get federal employees back to work. That thing sitting at the desk that funds the government doesn't have a single new Republican policy in it. It doesn't have a single partisan policy rider. It simply extends current government funding. But Democrats have said no to that now 12 times. We offered them a chance to continue the bipartisan appropriations process, starting with the defense appropriations bill, a bill that passed out of the committee by a big bipartisan vote of 26-3. But Democrats said no to that too. They didn't want to lose leverage in the shutdown. Then last week, we offered up a bill to pay any federal employee who was working during the shutdown, including everybody here. And once again, Democrats said no. Now, Mr. President, I don't know what Democrats are holding out for. Do Democrats think that we're suddenly going to vote for their partisan CR, which, by the way, would spend an additional $1.5 trillion to keep the government open until the end of this week? That's their alternative. $1.5 trillion to keep the government open until Friday. That's their alternative. It wouldn't pass here. It can't pass in the House, and it wouldn't be signed into law by the President. Our bill, on the other hand, as I said, has passed the House a month ago, has been sitting here for an entire month, and will be signed by the President immediately to reopen the government. I have to say, Mr. President, this wasn't my plan for the month of October. A government shutdown may have been what Democrats had in mind to show the far left that they're fighting President Trump and to get some cheers at the No Kings rally. But that wasn't my plan. My plan was to get the government funded with as little drama as possible. That's why Republicans put forward a clean, continuing resolution. No partisan policies, nothing new. Who could possibly have a problem with that? It would give us more time to continue progress on full-year appropriations bills, the way we're supposed to fund the government. Now, I would realize that would be out of the ordinary given the past few years under the Democrat majority and Leader Schumer, but I was clear from the day I took office that I wanted to do things differently around here. My goal was to have an open process, conducted through regular order, something that I think is in the best interest of this institution and of all senators, both sides of the aisle. And I know I was not alone in wanting an open process. And until Democrats derailed everything, we had actually made a lot of progress on restoring regular order this year. We passed 3 bipartisan appropriations bills before the August recess, the first time the Senate had done that since 2018. Now we're trying to go to conference on those 3 bills to reach a final agreement with the House. And the Democrats are blocking that. That includes the agriculture bill that funds farm programs and nutrition assistance, the military construction and VA bill that funds programs that veterans rely on. As I said, we tried to bring up the defense appropriations bill this month in hopes that if Democrats wouldn't agree to fund the entire government, we could at least make some progress on this critical aspect of it. And I told my Democrat colleagues at the time that if we got on that bill, we would work to add other bipartisan bills, the same way we did it just a few months ago. But once again, Democrats said no. No to funding programs that they claim they support. No to an open process. No to bipartisanship. Mr. President, time and again, we've heard the Democrat leader lecture about bipartisanship. So why is his caucus blocking progress on bipartisan appropriations bills? Why are Democrats blocking bills that they helped write in the Appropriations Committee, where these bills are passing with overwhelming bipartisan margins, as I said, 26-3? Why are they upending a bipartisan process that benefits all senators on both sides of the aisle? The senior senator from Hawaii said recently, and I quote, "We still have hope for the appropriations process. There's a bipartisan desire to get something done and avoid a full-year continuing resolution," end quote. Well, all I can say in response is that if Democrats still have hope for the appropriations process, they need to start acting like it. We're running out of time. And every day Democrats say no to reopening the government is another day lost. Mr. President, we've given Democrats a lot of opportunities to work in the best interest of the American people. But Democrats seem more interested in getting the upper hand in their partisan games. The number 2 Democrat in the House said last week, and I quote, "I mean, shutdowns are terrible, and of course there will be, families that are going to suffer, but is one of the few leverage times we have," end quote. Of course there will be families that are going to suffer, but it is one of the few leverage times we have. That from the second-ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives. I think it describes where we're at, Mr. President. Sure, people are suffering, but Democrats need their leverage. Are they serious? Mr. President, I end as I began, quoting the president of a major labor union and a Democrat ally. This is the quote: "The path forward for Congress is clear. Reopen the government immediately under a clean continuing resolution that allows continued debate on larger issues," end quote. Mr. President, I yield the floor and I suggest the absence of the quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston-Brooks.
Mr. President,
I recognize
I ask unanimous
the
consent.
Democrat leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Well, open enrollment is now just 4 days away, and Republicans do not even want to talk about fixing health care. Americans are on the brink of a health care crisis unlike we have seen in our lifetimes. Never before have we been in a situation where more than 20 million Americans can see their insurance premiums more than double on average in the blink of an eye. And that's just the average, because for many people it's worse. Yesterday, the state of New Jersey also announced the average New Jersey family would see premium hikes of 175%. 175%. In upstate New York, the average family with a plan costing $280 a month today is about to pay $1,700 a month for the same plan next year, a 500% hike. And that starts this Saturday with open enrollment. This crisis will be felt in every community and by nearly every single household, red, blue, purple, and everything in between. So tonight, Senate Democrats will come to the floor and warn our Republican colleagues in the nation of the devastation Republicans are causing by doing nothing on health care. We will highlight the impacts of surging premiums on families. We will share the stories we're hearing right now from people scared of premium hikes. I thank my colleagues for coming to the floor and speaking on this urgent issue. We are in a health care crisis, and Republicans don't even want to talk about how to fix it. The president isn't even in town, as Americans are about to be devastated by the bills they'll receive on health care. The president's on the other side of the world, instead of being here in Washington working with Congress to lower health care premiums. And when the president is in town, what's he focused on? Instead of being focused on fixing health care, Donald Trump's sending $40 billion to Argentina, spending $300 million on his ballroom, and giving Kristi Noem $170 million for 2 big private luxury jets. Meanwhile, millions of hungry kids and working families are about to lose SNAP benefits to buy food because Donald Trump has ordered the Department of Agriculture to rip up its own contingency plan. Isn't that a disgrace? Using hungry kids, hungry parents, hungry veterans as hostages. Cruel. Let's be clear about the facts. There is somewhere around $5 billion in emergency funds that could be used right now to ensure parents and kids don't go hungry when SNAP runs out this Saturday. The USDA said weeks ago that contingency funds were, quote, available to fund participant benefits. That's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Trump's own cabinet position. But now they've reversed course and literally wiped their plan from their own website because Donald Trump has ordered them not to use this funding. Donald Trump should reverse course immediately and allow these emergency funds to go through to spare working families from hunger and needless suffering. What the administration is doing, ordering the U.S. Department of Agriculture not to use emergency funds to keep SNAP afloat, is an act of cruelty. Cruelty. The same administration that gifted Argentina a $40 billion bailout and cut taxes for billionaires by $1 trillion is now telling hungry kids, you're on your own. And what about Republicans in Congress? Today, Leader Thune will force yet another vote on a Republican CR that has zero bipartisan input. It's a partisan bill and does nothing, most importantly, does nothing to solve the ACA crisis. Just now here on the floor, the Republican leader seemed perplexed about what precisely it is that Democrats are pushing for. He knows damn well what Democrats want. It's the very same thing that a vast majority of Americans want, including nearly 60% of MAGA voters. We want lower health care costs now. We want to solve the ACA premium crisis now. Open enrollment is just days away. We want lower costs, better health care, and to reopen the government. Let me repeat again what Democrats want so the leader can hear it loud and clear. The Republican leader can hear it. We want lower health care costs, fix the ACA premium crisis, and reopen the government. We Democrats have been calling on Republican leaders to sit down with us and negotiate and address this crisis since the summer. But even now, Leader Thune insists we should fix ACA premiums later, not right away. This is not good enough for the American people, because Americans know when it comes to health care, when Republicans say later, they mean never. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has become a ghost town. It's been 39 days since members of Congress have shown up for work. We all know what's going on here. Speaker Johnson's simply afraid to bring the House back because the minute he does, a good number of House Republicans will start saying exactly what many of us are calling for, that we need to address the ACA premium crisis as soon as we can. The Speaker is so afraid of exposing divisions within his own conference that he has unilaterally shut down one half of the legislative branch of government. So to sum it all up, we're just days away from a health care crisis unlike any we've ever seen, and Republicans from the Senate to the House to the White House are dithering about. Republicans are the party in charge. They hold the White House and both chambers in Congress. Americans know that. They know the onus is on the majority party to govern and to work with the other side to get things done. But today, Americans look at this Republican Party and see a majority refusing to do its job. It's thus no surprise that Americans primarily hold Republicans responsible for this disastrous shutdown. So I'll say it once again. Republicans need to get serious about ending this shutdown and ending the ACA crisis that has now become a reality for millions of people. They need to get serious. If Donald Trump continues to ignore the ticking time bomb that is ACA premiums, the American people will hold him responsible when disaster strikes. I yield the floor.
Out of Capitol Hill on day 28 of the U.S. government shutdown. By the way, this is the second longest lasting shutdown in U.S. history. The longest one happened back in December of 2018 and dragged on for 35 days. Well, later today, Vice President J.D. Vance is headed to the Hill to meet with Senate Republicans. And for a 13th time, the Senate has failed to advance a Republican-backed funding bill that would reopen the government. The final vote, 54-45, falling just short of the 60 votes needed to move forward and open up the government. So here's another headline. If that shutdown does not end by Saturday, food assistance in the form of something called SNAP benefits, it runs out for more than 40 million Americans who need those benefits to put food on the table. Meanwhile, 1.4 million federal workers are missing paychecks, including those who are still working their jobs today. So that's brought World Central Kitchen, which is a charity known for bringing food to war zones, to the nation's capital. You see the video right there. A lot of people forced to wait in line to get food assistance. So let's get to the Hill. And CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, the vice president is expected to talk tariffs with the GOP leaders, but what do we expect by way of a conversation on trying to get the government up and running again?
Hey, Reed, great to see you. Yeah, Vice President Vance is heading here. It's significant because the president is out of the country, and so there has been a little bit of a question of if the president's not here and there's no one to really negotiate with, where do things stand? Vance is making somewhat of a routine visit to lawmakers, Republican lawmakers here on Capitol Hill, but no doubt he will be asked by us, by someone, about the shutdown and what the administration plans to do about it. What you just described, Reed, I know we've been talking hurricanes, but what you just described is a perfect storm of a lot of different kinds of things affecting a lot of people across the country because of the inaction here on Capitol Hill. You just had the 13th vote on government funding. That is a 6-week measure. 7-week measure. We're almost at that point. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be in a scenario in which, if the government shutdown is still in place, it will have lasted longer than the piece of legislation that was intended to fund the government. There has been no action on either side here to move forward to some kind of solution, Reed. It's just remarkable. The two sides are not talking to each other. There are different approaches being talked about, funding different parts of the government to help pay for different kinds of workers, and none of that has reached a point of actually becoming law and helping those who need it. So we are in a situation where we've just seen little action. We'll see whether there's some kind of movement after Vance visits today, but if history is any guide, unlikely.
Wow. And what I really appreciate about your reporting is that what happens in those marble hallways affects Americans with kids, people with very real situations on keeping the food on the table and the benefits. You've talked to some of those real life people who are facing the end of those SNAP food assistance benefits. What are they telling you?
Yeah, Reed, yesterday we traveled to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, about 2.5 hours from Washington. This is central Pennsylvania, a state that President Trump won. And we spent some time at a food bank there that is bracing for demand, because if these SNAP benefits fall through, there's going to be a lot more demand on these food banks. And Reed, we spoke to a woman who is a 3-time cancer survivor, is unable to work, has been reliant on SNAP funding for the past few years, though, you know, she really didn't imagine that she would be in this kind of situation. I want you to take a listen to a little bit of our conversation. Having those resources, what does it mean for your life?
Everything. It means everything to me.
What exactly do you think you're going to need to do?
I'll have to ask my children to help me.
And what is...
That's an awful feeling.
How so?
For them to have to help me.
Even in...
It's a little tough to think about sometimes.
So, Reed, you can sense the pain and pride in her voice there, and it just goes to show that the inaction here on Capitol Hill is having already an effect on lots of people. 40 million Americans are set to lose their food stamp benefits come Saturday if no one acts. Now, there is a Republican proposal here in the Senate, sponsored by Josh Hawley, to fund SNAP benefits through the shutdown. He's trying to work on getting bipartisan support, but it's unclear whether that will get a vote. The USDA does have a contingency fund, about $5 billion in a fund that they say, however, that they can't legally tap, because in their words, that needs to be used for things like natural disasters. So we're starting to see this pressure being applied from the outside, and we'll see if it, pushes any lawmakers to reach some kind of solution here. But when you think about the people affected, they are very vulnerable, Reed. We're very grateful for the woman we featured there, Erin, for sharing her story with us, because I think those are so important to realize that what happens here affects everyone.
That's right. And at some point, these lawmakers are going to have to go home to their districts and hear from their very constituents who gave them the keys to their offices in the first place. Caitlin Huey-Burns on Capitol Hill, thank you so much for bringing us those headlines, not only from there, but also where people are feeling the pain points. Great work.